Wow, what a game. What an absolute shock. Pete Alonso. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody knows about it. And we got a lot to get into today, but we just got to start off with that, man. Pete Alonso, by far, just saved the narrative around his season. He sucked all year. Quite frankly, with runners in scoring position, in clutch spots, with runners on, you name it, Pete Alonso consistently didn't get the job done. But something was different last night. Something was different in the top of the ninth with runners on first and third. Pete Alonso grew a pair and hit one over the right field wall. And it was just so perfect that it was Lindor, Nimmo, and Alonso, the three runners to score in that top of the ninth, along with Jesse Winker, who had a great helmet slam. And that was awesome. I would hate Jesse Winker, by the way, if he was on any other baseball team. But since he's on the Mets, I love him. I love that energy. But, man, got to give credit to Alonso, and we're going to get into him in just a bit. But we're going to talk some Mets. We're going to talk some Phillies. We're going to talk some Yankees. We're going to talk some Royals. We're also going to talk about the New York Giants and New York Jets Week 5 matchups. Giants facing the Seahawks this week. And then the Jets going down to London. They're probably there right now getting ready for a tough matchup against a red-hot Minnesota Vikings team. So we're going to be talking about all that. But let's get it started with the New York Mets because there was some breaking news earlier today. Carlos Mendoza shocked Mets fans, shocked MLB fans around the world. Kodai Senga, game one nod. Senga, Wheeler, what a game one matchup. That's a money matchup, 4 p.m. tomorrow. It's going to be probably the best game one in the NLDS. First time the Mets are facing the Phillies in the history of the MLB in the first time in the playoffs. So that's big. That's big. This rivalry is heated right now. We all know how much New York and Philadelphia hate each other. And the Mets and the Phillies, they haven't really hated each other in a long time, I'd say. This year it was heating up because the Phillies are great and now so are the Mets for the first time in a long time. 2022 Phillies, they made the playoffs and they did make the World Series, but it wasn't really a rivalry. And then in 2023, obviously, Mets sucked. And now 2024, Mets are red hot. Phillies won the division. Mets, they kind of got that edginess to them more than they ever did, I'd say, in recent years. You know, you got guys like Winker. You got Lindor playing like an MVP right now. You got guys like Sean Manaea, who's putting the rally cap on to get the Mets going. Shout out to him. You know, you got high energy guys compared to years ago. So I think this is going to be a heated series, a very emotional series for both teams. I think we're going to see, some back and forth between the players, especially, considering we got guys, like I said before, Jesse Winker. He's a guy who's going to get fired up. And we all know that the Phillies have an entire team that gets fired up. And the fact that it's Wheeler, Senga, ace versus ace, former Met, and Zach Wheeler, he's no joke in the playoffs. So I am definitely worried about him in game one. Zach Wheeler, in his postseason career, he's 4-3 with a 2.42 ERA, striking out 9.66 over every 9 innings in the postseason. But at the same time, the Mets, Senga is coming off an injury 100%. 100%. But I feel like the Mets just were kind of maybe keeping this a secret and saying, you know what? We're not going to pitch him in the wild card, but if we get to the NLDS, you know what? Why not? Let's throw him game one because he's ready to go. And you know what? I guess he is ready to go. He's ready to go. He said in the interview today that he's comfortable throwing between 2 and 200 pitches, and he's ready for it. He's ready for the voracious crowd in Philadelphia that he's going to face because we all know that's going to be a ruckus over there. So Senga's going to be fired up, and he has had success in Japan. In Japan, across his last 5 playoff starts, he's only allowed 6 earned runs across those. And also, he is a 5-time Japan Series champion over there. So Senga knows how to win. We all know that. That's what he did in his rookie year with the Mets just a year ago, 2.98 ERA, over 200 strikeouts in his first season. And in the second half, that's really when he took off. He kind of had some struggling starts in the first half, but in the second half, once he got used to the MLB style, he really took off. So Senga, we Mets fans all know how great he is. So the question is, is he really ready? Like, what are we going to get? Are we going to get a little like 1 or 2 innings from Senga, and then we're going to see whoever really was supposed to start this game, like Tyler McGill? Or are we going to see Kodai Senga actually go 4, 5, 6 innings? I don't know, but I am pumped. I think as every Mets fan is pumped. And Carlos Mendoza has been the most interesting Mets manager, I think, of all time. Leaving Edwin Diaz in just a few days ago to get the Mets to the playoffs. Trusting his gut and leaving Jose Quintana. We really don't see that in the playoffs in today's MLB. We see starters, even when they're having that much success, get pulled early. And, shout out to Mendoza. He trusted his gut. Quintana goes 6 strong innings, no earned runs allowed. And then, of course, the bullpen, Phil Matone lets up the – actually, it wasn't Phil Matone, but Jose Budo lets up the 2 home runs. But Phil Matone, obviously, the day before. So some bullpen decisions obviously didn't go his way. But outside of that, Mendoza has been great. I mean, game 1 with the decision to pinch hit JD Martinez for Jesse Winker to get that matchup, the righty-lefty matchup. And Brandon Nimmo, I mean, we all know he has success against lefties. I mean, this year he was kind of down in the regular season, but he's starting to get a little bit going now in the postseason. So that's big for the Mets. If they got Nimmo, Lindor, and Alonso going, they could really take off in the postseason. But having Senga, I think, is huge for them because it depends what kind of Senga they get, but any type of Senga, I think, is great for the Mets. Now the Phillies are off guard. Even if he does go 1 or 2 innings, they're preparing for Kodai Senga. And then next thing you know, Carlos Mendoza says, you know what, Tyler McGill, he's in the game. So their whole entire game plan's thrown off. So maybe the Mets have some tricks up their sleeve, or maybe, the trick up their sleeve is just Kodai Senga coming out of nowhere and absolutely dominating the Phillies. But for sure, it is definitely a money matchup with Zach Wheeler versus Kodai Senga in game 1 of the National League divisional round. Mets versus Phillies playing in the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. This is going to be awesome. 100%. High energy guys on both sides. Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, they are ready to go. Trey Turner, they're all going to be at this level. They have been the best of the best. We had success against them in the last time we played them in the last week of the regular season. But now it's playoffs. And the Phillies have dominated in the postseason in recent years. So they haven't gotten the World Series. So they are hungry. They want it more than anybody probably in this entire postseason. So I think this is the toughest test. If the Mets do end up, knock on wood, going all the way, the Phillies would be the toughest part. So knocking off the Phillies, I think that's when you really got to believe that, hey, maybe this team does have some magic. I mean, we're one round away if we do beat the Phillies from the World Series. But it starts with Philadelphia. It's definitely, I'd say, the most hungry and best team. I'd say the best team is the Yankees and the Dodgers, but I'd say the most hungry team right now to get there is the Philadelphia Phillies. 2 heartbreakers these past 2 years. They want it bad. And Bryce Harper, the one thing he's never gotten is a World Series ring. So we'll see what they can do. I'll put up Zach Wheeler's stats one more time because he's no joke. But let's talk about this series. Let's talk about who we need. We need specifically 3 guys that I mentioned before. We need Pete Alonso. We need Francisco Lindor. And we need Brandon Nimmo. But most importantly, let's start off with Pete Alonso because he's the guy who kind of had the weight lifted off his shoulders. You could see it in his post-game interviews. He was just so relieved. You could tell it, and it was great in a sense because Alonso, it felt like he was kind of pressing all year. It's a contract year for him. He's got to do big to get a big contract in the offseason. We all know he wants to be a Met for life. The Mets fans, they all want him to be a Met for life, no matter how much he struggled this year. We all know that's a guy who's a 40-plus home run guy, 100-plus RBI guy. This year, definitely his worst year. Definitely can't back up this year. But what he did just last night, you got to give him props. Pete Alonso changed the entire narrative around a season. Changed the narrative around a season. Everybody always wanted him back, and that was the reason why. Because in big spots, we know what Pete can do. These past 2 years, Pete hasn't really done that, but he proved that he can still do that in the biggest of moments. The first ever player in MLB history to hit a home run while trailing in the 9th inning. To hit a go-ahead home run. That was just insane. So you got to give credit to Pete. And, if this is a weight lifted off his shoulders, because we really haven't seen Pete go on a run all year. And if he starts to go on a run now, when we all know what this lineup can do without him, imagine what this lineup can do with a red-hot Pete Alonso. With a normal Pete Alonso. When in 2022, he had 271, he had over 40 home runs, and he led the league in RBIs. Like, we know Pete Alonso can be a superstar. He can do it with Francisco Lindor. Those guys were, after 2022, we all looked at Lindor and Alonso and said, we have two cornerstone pieces. And we still have a cornerstone piece in Lindor. And I think Alonso, if he goes on a red-hot streak, he joins him back. The best home run, I think, in Mets franchise history, and it's wild to say considering the home run Lindor hit just Monday night. I don't think Lindor is – I'd say his home run is up there. It wasn't in the playoffs, but it got them to the playoffs, so that's big. And quite frankly, I've said this to a lot of guys. Everyone's like, oh, Lindor's home run, it's not that big because it wasn't in the playoffs. But at the same time, if the Mets do damage in the postseason, if they do get to the World Series and they do make this a memorable postseason run, that home run will be remembered, quite frankly. And Alonso's obviously will for a long time. But this team is resilient. So I think just get by Zach Wheeler tomorrow. You get by Zach Wheeler tomorrow and you get to the bullpen. I think that's the key because Zach Wheeler, quite frankly, he's been dominant. But if you can count on these three guys, Alonso, Nimmo, Lindor, you count on those three guys to provide some type of offense. If one of those three guys can get a home run off Zach Wheeler, I think that would be big. And, Alonso, I know he hit that late home run, the clutch home run, but we need to see a first inning home run, especially playing on the road. Shut the crowd up in Philadelphia because we all know Philadelphia is going to be raging. It is going to be on fire. We need a first inning or even a second inning home run. Kodai Senga needs to shut them down tomorrow night in the first inning. And I think we need one of those three guys, Nimmo, Alonso, or Lindor, because those are our cornerstone pieces. One of those guys needs to do it. They need to step up. We haven't seen a first inning home run in the playoffs in these first three games. And you score first in the playoffs, a lot of times you are going to win. So that is just a fact. Mark Vientos, he's another guy who could hit that first inning home run. I mean, he had a big first round series against Milwaukee. In the playoffs right now, he's actually hitting 268, 840, 250. He's hitting 250 actually. And he does have the 3 hits, 2 RBIs. He did strike out 5 times though in the playoffs, so that is not too good. But another guy who's kind of surprisingly doing well in this postseason is Starlin Marte. Starlin Marte hitting 333 with a clutch spot, 2 in the top of the 9th, joining Pete Alonso, driving in a run, just allowing Jesse Winker to slam his helmet on the ground, which was awesome. And like I said before, if he was on any other team, I would hate stuff like that. But he's on our team. I kind of like it, I guess. So I'm down with it. He probably broke his helmet. Get him a new one. But this team is red hot at the right time. It's red hot at the right time. And if Pete Alonso gets red hot, I mean, this lineup could really take off. It could really take off. So let's go over the numbers for these teams this year. The Mets, 7th in runs scored this year, whereas the Phillies, they were 5th in runs scored with 4.8, so we're right behind them offensively. Hits, Phillies were 4th in the entire MLB with 8.8 a game, which is insane. The Mets in hits, they were 8th with 8.4, which is also insane. So the offense is going to be there. I think it's going to be also home run wise because the Mets, they're a home run hidden team this year, which hasn't been a thing for them last year. It was just not a thing for them. But this year it is 207 home runs, 6 in the entire MLB. And the Phillies, same thing. They are a home run hidden team, 7th in the entire MLB with 198 this season. So both teams, I think, when the Phillies are facing a guy like Senga, you're looking to get one swing of the bat. One swing of the bat. Same thing for the Mets. You're looking to get one swing of the bat off a guy like Zach Wheeler. So I think that's what we should be looking for. Who's going to be the guy? Is it going to be Nimmo? Is it going to be Vientos? Is it going to be Lindor? Is it going to be Alonso? And for the Phillies, is it going to be Bryce Harper? Is it going to be Nick Castellanos? Is it going to be Kyle Schwarber? Is it going to be Trey Turner? They got so many guys. Is it going to be Bryson Scott? I mean, Bryson Scott, he only had 11 home runs this year, but he's a guy who kind of did a little damage in the middle of the infield this year for the Phillies. And then JT Realmuto, he's a guy we all know. He's got pop in 99 games. He had 14 home runs this year. So JT, he's a guy you got to keep an eye on too. The Phillies got a great lineup, so they're probably looking same thing that I'm thinking. Then again, I'm not an MLB manager or GM, but this would be my guess and what they're trying to do, what they're going to try to game plan. Try to get an early home run off one of these guys. And then get to the bullpen. And the Mets, going into the playoffs, I thought maybe we got a good bullpen with Jose Budo having a great year and coming out of the pen. Edwin Diaz, he's been shaky, but I thought maybe we'd see him do good. But, even if he does come in the postseason, I'm going to be still a little concerned because he's been shaky this year for sure. We really do not have a guy. We don't have a guy. So if Senga can come in and provide a little bit, maybe, like I said, if it's a 2-inning trick and then you bring in Tyler McGill, that's an awesome. Because then that means we get Senga out of the pen. Because if he can pitch against the Phillies for 2-3 innings tomorrow, we know he can at least come out of the pen in big spots for us down the stretch. So it's going to be an exciting game tomorrow. I think the key for both teams is, if you're the Mets, depend on one of those guys at the top of the order to hit a home run. Because let's be real, Tyrone Taylor, I don't think it's worth it putting him in the lineup. I don't. I think tomorrow is a game where maybe you do put Luis Angel Acuna in that lineup. He's a guy who we saw. He has pop. He's a guy who can change the game with one swing of the bat. So I think that's what we got to see in tomorrow's lineup. We got to see JD Martinez. We obviously have to see Francisco Alvarez. So if I'm the Mets, if I'm Mendoza, I'm going to give my little playoff lineup. I love doing this. You guys can comment your playoff lineup. Comment what you think of mine. But I'd 100% say this is my playoff lineup going in tomorrow. I'd go, obviously, Lindor right at short. And since I would kind of be interested because we saw Mendoza kind of do this at some points in the season. So I would say maybe you go Lindor, you go Nimmo, so you get two lefties right off the bat. Then I'd even consider batting third. Yeah, I'd go Lindor, Nimmo, Vientos. Throw Alonso number 4. Keep his confidence pretty high. And then 5, I'd put Jesse Winker. You got to get that left-hander in there. 6, you got to go JD. 7, you got to go Alvy. Because I want to hit Acuna right at the 9 spot. That's where I would hit Acuna tomorrow night. I think you got to find a spot for him. And I know Marte has been – he produced in that first round of the postseason against the Brewers. But at the same time, we got to figure out how to get him in the lineup. And it's going to be tough to do 100%. Maybe you sit Jose Iglesias, but do we really think Iglesias is a guy who can change the game in one swing of the bat? I think maybe Acuna could be that guy. He could be that guy. He's got pop in 12 games this season. Yeah, in 12 games this season, he hit 3 home runs in 12 games. And we all saw that ball fly off his bat. So I think you got to consider putting Acuna in that lineup tomorrow, just like I said. And then, you know what? If he sucks, he sucks. And then you put Jose Iglesias in, worst case. But you know what? We're facing a great pitcher tomorrow. We need guys that got popped that can hit the ball hard. And Acuna hits the ball hard. So I get him in the lineup with Vientos. I get JD, you got to get in there, obviously. Vientos, you got to hit up in the order, I'd say at the 3 spot. Alonso, you got to hit him fourth. Got to hit him fourth. No messing around there. You got to hit him fourth. Get his confidence high. And then I think you got to hit Nimmo second because you got to start off with 2 lefties. Try to get him early. Get him early. But it's going to be an interesting series for sure. We got Senga on the bump Saturday. Sunday, we're going to get Sevy versus Christopher Sanchez. Sevy had a pretty good start in game 1 against Milwaukee. 6 innings, 4 earned runs allowed. But you know what? Going 6 innings, that was huge. That was huge. We didn't really have to go too deep into our bullpen, which was big because there's a lot of guys in that bullpen that scared us, as we discussed earlier. And then we're probably going to get, I do think we're going to get Sean Manaea in game 3 at Citi Field. The first playoff game at Citi Field will probably be Sean Manaea, I'd estimate, or even David Peterson. But either or, I think we are lined up good. You get by Zach Wheeler. I am confident. You just got to take, obviously, one of these first 2 games. That's the must. But if you take a game against Zach Wheeler and you got Sevy going in game 2 against Christopher Sanchez, I like that matchup again for the Mets. So if you can beat Zach Wheeler, I think the Mets have a pretty good shot at going up 2-0. And then if they go up 2-0 and they got a Manaea and a Peterson that can go game 3 at Citi Field, let's see what they can do. I like the Mets in this series. I really do like the Mets in this series. The Mets did play very well against the Phillies in the later part of the season this year. So I do like the way they look. Let's actually take a look at the Mets the last time they played the Phillies. Last time they played the Phillies, they took 3 out of 4, 10-6 win, a 12-2 loss, a 6-3 win, and a 2-1 win. And Sevy was one of those guys. Sevy, 6 innings, 3 earned runs allowed. Mets beat up on Taijuan Walker. They beat up on Taijuan Walker, former Met. And then Christopher Sanchez, he did kind of shove against the Mets. Went 5 innings, 3 hits allowed, only 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts total, but 5 walks. Then again, so he's a guy who does walk a lot. So I think we can get to him. It's a guy that we can get to. And Sean Manaea, like I said, in game 3, I would love to see him on the bump because his last start against Philly, he really did dominate. Only 3 hits allowed, 3 earned runs allowed, of course, but 6 strikeouts, no walks, 7 innings, 2. So with the win, 6-3 overall, and Edwin Diaz coming in clutch, 1 1/3 innings that night too with 2 strikeouts. That was a big series for Edwin Diaz as well. And then obviously we saw that 2-1 win with Tyler McGill looking good, Phil Mattone looking good, Jose Budo looked good. The entire pitching staff really looked good against the Phillies outside of that second game when we lost 12-2. But McGill looked great. McGill did look good. So I wouldn't be, worried if we see him step into the game out of the bullpen. And that would be great if we can use Tyler McGill as a bullpen asset because I kind of trust him a little bit more than Mattone and Jose Budo at this point. Edwin Diaz, I still kind of want to trust him just because he's Edwin Diaz and I know what he can provide when he's at his best. I mean, we saw it against Milwaukee. He's been getting the job done. So I still do want to see Edwin Diaz. And I think if we can see Tyler McGill join him out of that bullpen, that'd be a little bit more of a confidence booster for Mets fans when they see a guy like Tyler McGill come out of the bullpen before Edwin Diaz does. Because I'd love to throw Diaz 3 innings every single postseason game, but that's unrealistic. So that is unrealistic. But the Mets did play very well against the Phillies the last time they played them. So it's going to be a great series. I mean, you look at the guys that we're going to be facing. We're going to be facing Zach Wheeler. We're going to be facing Christopher Sanchez. Then we're going to probably be facing Aaron Nola. and then Ranger Suarez. And all of them have had great years. All of them have had great years. So we'll see what we can do against the Phillies. They got a 3.85 staff ERA. And then even you look at their bullpen, they do have a good amount of guys. Matt Stram, he was a beast all year. Across 62 innings of work, 1.87 ERA. So he's a guy you got to keep an eye out for coming out of the pen. They do have Jose Alvarado, who has I would love to face Jose Alvarado, actually. We beat him up at times in the past, so probably not going to see Taijuan Walker much. They're probably going to stay away from him, especially after what happened last time the Mets faced him. So we're probably going to be seeing a lot of these four guys. So the Mets' early part of that lineup, I think the key is hit home runs. Hit home runs, and the pitching's just got to dominate. It's just got to go out there and did what they did. We took 3 out of 4 of them just a few weeks ago. I think the Mets, I'm not going to say they're going to take 3 out of 4, but I think they can take 3 out of 5. I think they can take 3 out of 5. All right, let's talk about these Yankees, man. Yankees going up against the Kansas City Royals. Kansas City Royals getting by the Baltimore Orioles. So now the Yankees don't have to face their AL East rivals. But game one is going to be just like the Mets game one. It's going to be a good one. You got Garrett Cole versus Michael Wacha. Obviously, the Yankees, you got to like them in that matchup. You definitely got to like them in that matchup. Michael Wacha this year, let's go over his numbers. He did have a pretty good year, 29 games this year, 3.35 ERA, 145 strikeouts. So he's a guy who doesn't strike out a lot. He's a guy he's kind of like similar to David Peterson of the Mets. He's a ground ball pitcher, or even like Marcus Stroman, he is a ground ball pitcher. So I do like the matchup, though. Michael Wacha, he's had success. His last 3 seasons, you got to give him credit. Sub-4 ERA every single year across these last 3 seasons. With the Padres last year, 3.22 ERA. With the Red Sox in 2022, he had a 3.32 ERA. So Michael Wacha isn't no scrub, but at the same time, he's not a power pitcher. And what does that mean? Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton. Like, the Yankees got pop. The Yankees got pop. That's why they are the current favorites, according to FanDuel, to win the World Series, because they have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto and Stanton. And Aaron Judge, quite frankly, I think he's due for a gigantic postseason. He's a .211 career hitter in the playoffs. I think that changes this year. I think we're going to see a much different Aaron Judge, especially he knows. I feel like Aaron Judge knows that this is his best shot. Garrett Cole isn't getting any younger. He's not getting any younger. Juan Soto, we don't know how long he's going to be around for. Stanton, he's not getting any younger. Like, this is it. I'm not saying this is it, but I think this is the Yankees' best shot at actually getting the 28th ring. I really do. I think this is the year they got to do it. And I think it is the year that they will do it. I've said it all year. I think the Yankees will win the 2024 World Series. And it's because they have Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Garrett Cole. That's it. Their bullpen, yes, scary. Who are you pitching outside of Cole and Rodon? Yeah, a little scary. Clark Schmidt, you don't really trust him that much, but you gotta. And you know what? He's dependable. He's had a dependable year in 16 games this year. He did get hurt for quite a long time, but in 16 games this year, 2.85 ERA. So he's going to be a guy that you do want to see over a guy like Marcus Stroman, obviously. Stroman, you don't even know if you want to see him coming out of the bullpen with how bad he's been. But I'd say you definitely trust Garrett Cole, because Garrett Cole, his postseason stats are ridiculous. In his postseason career, 10-6, 2.93 ERA, 11.56 strikeouts per 9 innings. Garrett Cole's he's a big game pitcher. So I think game one is a lock for the Yankees. I think a guy like Michael Wacha, yes, he's been successful. He's been one of the best pitchers, most consistent pitchers over the last 3 years. But at the same time, you have Aaron Judge, you have Stanton, even Gleyber Torres, who's been better in the second half. You have a rested Anthony Volpe. You have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, obviously, probably the best power hidden duo in the last, 5 years, maybe. Ohtani and Trout were a duo. So we'll see. They didn't go to the playoffs. They didn't win their division. Judge and Soto did. So maybe they are better than Trout and Ohtani. But then again, it doesn't change the fact that Judge, for him to become a great all-time Yankee, he is a great all-time Yankee already, don't get me wrong. But all-time Yankees all have rings. Judge needs a ring. And this is his best shot. It's this year. So Yankees, they're the current World Series favorites for a reason. And I do think this is the series we see Aaron Judge finally wake up. I mean, this is the playoffs that Aaron Judge finally wakes up for. And I do think the Yankees will win the World Series because of it. Because I feel like the real reason the Yankees have been falling short in recent memory, they've been to the ALCS. They were right there. They were knocking on the door, but they got swept a few years ago by the Houston Astros. And why? It's because their lineup was silent. Blame the pitching all you want, but the lineup was silent. And Aaron Judge was obviously a big part of that. Even my dog agrees. So if Aaron Judge goes off, I think the Yankees go off because I expect Juan Soto to go off. I expect Stanton to go off a little bit. He's going to hit home runs here and there. And I like the matchup tomorrow. The Bronx, Yankees fans, they're one of the wildest fans in sports. I think Yankee Stadium is going to be rocking tomorrow. I think we're going to see Aaron Judge at the top of his game tomorrow. Day game, going to be beautiful weather out. So I think we see Judge go off. Michael Wacha, like I said before, not a power pitcher, not a strikeout pitcher. I think that's perfect for a lineup like the Yankees. With all the power hitters they got, they're gonna go off. They're gonna go off. Game 2, kind of a question mark for the Yankees because who do you pitch in Game 2? Who do you pitch in Game 2 on Monday night? It's gonna be Carlos Rodon. I mean, not in Game 2. Tyson, quiet, man. My dog wants to join the show. But yeah, in Game 3, the Yankees really don't know who they're going to pitch. I mean, you got Louis Hill. That's definitely an option. I would go Clark Schmidt, though. I would go Clark Schmidt. I would 100% go Clark Schmidt. Because then Game 4 comes around, and hopefully you don't even need Game 4. And if you're down a little bit in the series, if you're down 2-1 after the first 3 games, you can always go Garrett Cole on short rest. I'm sure he'd be okay to do it. But we are going to need the starters to do well for the Yankees if they want to have postseason success, obviously. It would be great if Judge, Soto, Stanton all go off. But we all know there's going to be some nights where one out of those 3 guys are going to be silent. But like I said, if Judge does decide to do what he does in the regular season in the playoffs for the first time, Yankees will have a cakewalk to the World Series. But obviously the bullpen is going to be the biggest question mark. Who do you want to see come out of the bullpen for the Yankees? I think that's the biggest question. Clay Holmes, you kind of want to keep as far away as possible. One of the worst seasons put together by a closer all year. When you look at his numbers outside of the blown saves, he was okay, but he was terrible. Terrible. You do not want Clay Holmes closing games for the Yankees at all. Tommy Kahnle, though, he's a guy who I think is going to be dependable for the Yankees, coming out of the pen a lot for the Yankees, I think, in the postseason. 2.11 ERA this year in 50 games this year, 46 strikeouts, over 42.2 innings of work. Tommy Kahnle, been around for a while, definitely big. Definitely a big blow for the Yankees is losing Jake Cousins, former Milwaukee Brewer, 2.37 ERA across 37 games this year. He was definitely a big piece in that bullpen, and definitely hate to see him not available in this first round. But one guy you might be able to trust as well is Ian Hamilton. In 35 games this year, 3.82 ERA. But he's a guy in September, only 1 earned run allowed in September. So, he had a hot September. He's hot right now. I think you can depend on Ian Hamilton, hopefully. Really outside of that, you definitely not trusting Mark Leiter. I mean, maybe Luke Weaver. I'd say definitely Luke Weaver. 2.89 ERA, six across 62 games. So Luke Weaver, he's definitely a guy. But outside of that, I don't really know, man. Cody Poteet, maybe. And give him the call up. I mean, he didn't play since June 12th, but he did pitch against the Orioles on September 25th. And he wasn't bad across 3.1 innings of work, 1 earned run. So he's definitely an option. But we'll see. We'll see. Rizzo will be out. LeMahieu's still out. Yankees, I think they do have a cakewalk. I'd say Yankees get the job done in at least 4 games. I think it's going to be a sweep. I think this is a great first-round matchup for the Yankees. I think they are light years ahead of the Royals. You look at the Royals overall this year. I mean, they're a wild card team. That's what they are. And that should be stupid of me to say because my Mets are a wild card team. But at the same time, the Mets were one of the best teams in baseball in the second half. Royals were not. Mets almost had 90 wins. Royals only had 86. So let's see. Royals, I mean, you look at their numbers all year, they're 170 home runs. That's 20th in all of baseball. Runs allowed, their pitching has definitely been the bread and butter. Only 4 runs allowed per game, which was 4th in the entire MLB. Top 10 rotation ERA, 3.76, 8th in MLB. But the Yankees, too, I mean, you look at their overall numbers this year, they're third best offense in baseball in terms of runs scored, 5 runs a game. Home runs, I mean, that's what they do. Best home run hitting team in baseball. It helps when you have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton. And even why am I Gleyber Torres even had a few dingers in the second half this year that really upped that total for the Yankees, but definitely Judge and Soto definitely pulling the weight there. Runs allowed 8th in the MLB, 4.1 per game. ERA 7th in the entire MLB with a 3.74. So you can actually say the Yankees rotation is better than the Royals. But we all know that the Royals, they do got guys. I mean, let's take a look at who the Yankees are likely going to be facing. I mean, Seth Lugo is definitely going to be facing the Yankees at some point, and he's been out of his freaking mind this year. The former Met this year, 33 starts, 200 innings of work, 16-9, 3.301 ERA, 181 strikeouts. I mean, Seth Lugo had a phenomenal year this year. Definitely a career year for him. Then you got Cole Ragans this year, 32 starts this year, 3.14 ERA, 223 strikeouts. He was insane this year. Brady Singer, he's another guy you got to keep an eye on. The 9-13 record obviously doesn't look too great, but a 3.71 ERA across 32 games. That was very good. And then Michael Lorenzen, he's a very interesting pitcher. Always has been a very interesting pitcher, but always a successful pitcher somehow. 26 games this year, 3.32 ERA this year. So, they got guys. They got guys that they can throw at the Yankees, obviously, this series. And Michael Wacha is going to be getting the game 1 nod. But yeah, man. They don't really have strikeout pitchers. That's the problem. Seth Lugo is not a strikeout pitcher. Michael Lorenzen is not a strikeout pitcher. Brady Singer is not even really a strikeout pitcher. The only strikeout pitcher they have is Cole Ragans. He'll probably be getting the game 2 nod. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Seth Lugo has been great, but Ragans has been something else this year. I mean, you look at his last few starts, too. I mean, against the Yankees, strikes out 7 across 6 innings of work. Only 2 earned runs allowed. So there you go. And speaking of that series, I always like to compare how they played in the regular season. So let's do that right now. Let's take a look at that last time. The Yankees played the Royals. Dragons did have success, but the Yankees still did get the job done. And Luke Weaver pitched that game as well, 1.2 innings to get the close, to get the save there. 3 strikeouts across one and 2/3 innings of work. But then again, Cole Ragans, he did let up 2 earned runs in that game. Juan Soto hit a home run off him. So Soto does have success. All of Ragans' recent success. But it's going to be, let's go over this last series. They played back in September, early September. Yankees took 1 out of those 3 games, actually. Oh, actually, yeah, two out of the 3. 2 out of the 3. They took 2 out of the 3 games. 10-4 win over the Royals in game 1. 5-0 loss in game 2. Seth Lugo dominated them. 10 strikeouts, 7 innings, 3 hits only. One of the last times you saw Marcus Stroman pitch too, at least start. And then the 4-3 win when they got past Cole Ragans somehow. Colby Ragans somehow. Yeah, I do think the Yankees get the job done in 3 or 4 wins, 3 or 4 games this series. So, yeah, like I said, they don't really have strikeout pitchers. I think Seth Lugo striking out 10 Yankees is great, but I don't think we're going to see it again. He really was on that night, though. I mean, Gleyber Torres struck out once, Juan Soto struck out twice, Judge struck out twice, Austin Wells struck out once, Stanton struck out, Josh Chisholm struck out twice, Jason Dominguez struck out, Anthony Rizzo struck out twice, Volpe struck out twice. Like, that game was tough for the Yankees. But outside of that, they dominated the series. I mean, the 10-4 win. Look at the Yankees number in the 10-4 win. Austin Wells hit a home run. Aaron Judge went 2 for 4. Gleyber Torres went 3 for 4. Soto went 1 for 2. So that's what you want. That is what you want. And you got to like where the Yankees are at. Going up against the Royals, you got Judge, who's due for a big postseason. Soto, first time they're playing together, so he's going to get. Mike was muted there. My bad, guys. But yeah, what I was saying is I like where the Yankees are at. Based off what they did in the Royals against the Royals recently, taking 2 out of 3 games. Beating a guy like Colby. Beating a guy like Colby, and then Seth Lugo. Really, I don't think we're going to see him strike out 10 Yankees again. Michael Wacha, not a power pitcher. So I think with the Yankees, the fact that they have power hitters, I think they can kind of put the ball over the wall off a few of these guys. And they got guys who can do it. And Judge is due for a big postseason. Volpe's well rested. Volpe's a guy who every time Volpe's well rested, he performs well. Start of the regular season, performed well. After the All-Star break, performed well. Takes a little break in the second half, performs well. Takes a little break now. Let's see him perform well again. So Volpe, I think he's a guy I'm going to keep an eye on this postseason. Maybe we get a well-rested and a well-performing Volpe. And if we get that with Judge, who I expect to have a big postseason, with Juan Soto, who has great playoff career numbers, Stanton, who's had a ton of postseason success with the Yankees, I think we will see a Yankees team probably sweep or at least 3 out of the 4. I'm 3 in the first 4 games. I think the Yankees take, and like I said before, Judge is due for a big postseason, and I think that's why the Yankees are World Series favorites right now. So, yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and then actually, you know what? Screw a break. Let's just power through this. Let's power through this late at night. Let's get through this. Jets, panic or relax, man. Playing the Minnesota Vikings, the 4-0 Minnesota Vikings in London. Sam Darnold, you know, his ghost could come back to haunt the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. I really think it could. Sam Darnold's been on top of his game. He's been an MVP favorite, actually, surprisingly, through his first 4 games. I don't think he's going to take it home this year, but I think he's still going to have a career year. I mean, he's got Justin Jefferson to throw the ball to, and he's got a great offensive coach. You know, Sam Darnold, I think he's in a great spot in Minnesota, and I'm proud of him for sure. Definitely love to see him succeed. You know, I've always had a soft spot for him. I wish the Jets never traded him. I wish they kept him when Joe Douglas came in, when Robert Saleh came in, instead of trading him. And then obviously drafting Zach Wilson. I think if we built around Sam Darnold, I mean, when we drafted Sam Darnold, he had a terrible O-line. He had no wide receivers. He had a washed-up Le'Veon Bell. He had nothing. Zach Wilson, they get him Garrett Wilson. They get him all these guys. They get him Elijah Moore at one point. Like, Darnold had nothing, man. Darnold had nothing. So I think Darnold could come back and haunt us for sure. But at the same time, our defense is loaded. We just let up, 10 points in a loss? So we score more than 20 points against Minnesota. We can win this goddamn football game for sure. So I think the key for the Jets, score more than 20 points. Because as great as Sam Darnold has been this year, he is going to have to play one of the best defenses in the NFL. No matter how much they want to run the football, Sam Darnold, and when you look at what Justin Jefferson, let's take a look at Justin Jefferson's stat line against the Jets last year, or in recent memory, because I do think they played. Let's see. Yeah, Justin Jefferson was only held to 45 yards in 2022 against the Jets. He did have a touchdown catch, but only 7 catches, and that was with Kirk Cousins. And I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is better than Sam Darnold. I will say that, especially after the 500-yard performance he had on Thursday Night Football. But yeah, I do think the Jets can control Jay Jettas. We saw Sauce do it before. Let's, a little bit of teamwork. DJ Reed, hopefully he's going to be healthy, feeling a little bit better, ready to go. He's going to be very helpful. Only allowing 10 points last week in that loss, I think still gives me confidence that if the Jets can just score over 20 points, which I 100% know they can, and it's so easy for them to do considering how much talent they have on offense, all we really need to see the Jets do, I think the simple recipe for success, score more than 20 points. And how do you do that? Well, Aaron Rodgers, say what you want about him. I'd say he's done his part. He's putting the ball in the right spots. He's hitting Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson doesn't even see it coming. Take a peek every now and then. It seems like, Wilson is thinking, I want to finish my route. But if you're open, Rodgers is going to throw it to you. You got to be ready. So I think that's the problem Garrett Wilson's having right now. I think that's what he's having right now. Once they get on the same page, I think we will really see this offense take off. It's just, when will it happen? I'm hoping this week. I'm really hoping this week, because when you look at the passing defense for the Minnesota Vikings, they have the worst passing defense in the entire football league, which the Jets are underdogs. If you don't take the Jets this week, you are out of your mind. I think the Jets are going to win this game, because you look at the Jets, they have the second best defense in football in terms of yards allowed and passing yards allowed. Rushing yards allowed, 21st. And everyone's like, oh, the Russian defense sucks. Well, they allow 15.5 points per game right now through the first 4 weeks. 5th in the entire NFL. And at the same time, you know who's 4th? The Vikings. But you know what the difference is? Yards allowed. Aaron Rodgers put the ball down the field get the ball in the end zone. Breece Hall, I have a hard time seeing 2 weeks in a row he's going to suck. The rushing defense of the Vikings is very good, but at the same time, I have a feeling Breece Hall is not going to suck 2 weeks in a row. And they have the worst passing defense in the NFL. So what's the key for the Jets? Garrett Wilson's got to get going. Aaron Rodgers, get the ball downfield. Take Aaron Rodgers over passing yards. And I'd say take Jets money line, baby. That's my week 5 preview, Jets versus Vikings. I'm confident. I'm 100% worried that Sam Darnold could haunt us, but that's just because former Jet. And it's just the Jets. They're like the Mets, you know. You always think negative sometimes. That's what happens when you root for the Jets your whole life and you root for the Mets your whole life. You sometimes think negative about your sports teams. Sometimes we say, yeah, we want to believe, but in the moment, I'm thinking last night, Pete Alonso is going to ground out to a double play, really? This is how the season's going to end. And then, whoa! And I'm thinking that right now, that Sam Darnold somehow is just going to, in the back of my mind, for sure, I'm thinking Sam Darnold, but that's what my heart's thinking. My head is telling me this game, the Jets are going to score more than 20 points, and they're going to let up less than 20 points. I don't think Darnold's going to do crappy. I don't think he's going to have a terrible game, but I don't think he's going to do enough to stop the Aaron Rodgers passing attack. We'll see what they can do. And even if Garrett Wilson doesn't wake up, I mean, Tyler Conklin, we saw him have a game a few weeks ago. Alan Lazard, we know he's been getting going with Rodgers. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And like I said, I see Breece Hall bouncing back. And speaking of receivers, speaking of Jets offense, Davante Adams has requested a trade. He prefers to be traded to the Jets, but doesn't mind any other team, obviously. He wants out of Las Vegas. But it's very clear. He wants to go to New York. And is it worth it? I know I've heard some say, but Garrett Wilson, you shouldn't need Davante Adams because you have Garrett Wilson. I don't care. Go get Davante Adams. I don't care if we had Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime. I don't care if we had Randy Moss. When you look up Aaron Rodgers' numbers with Davante Adams, if Davante Adams wants to join the Jets and the Jets had Randy Moss, you still get Davante Adams because then you have Randy Moss and Davante Adams. I would much rather have Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams than Garrett Wilson and no Davante Adams. It's a no-brainer. If he wants to come here, get him. Hassan Reddick, bye. Get rid of him. I don't think you have to include him in the trade, but just get rid of him. Bringing up Jets trades. So I think if Davante wants to come here, go get him. Second round pick, take it. Take it. What else you want? You want a backup quarterback? Not Tyrod Taylor, just in case Rodgers get hurt. But who's the kid we drafted? Jordan Travis? Take him. Get Davante Adams. Simple as that. That will put the Jets over the top this year, for sure. All right. Giants Seahawks. Let's talk this real quick, and then let's wrap this show up. Can Jones beat Geno Smith? Geno Smith 3-1 with the Seahawks right now. Does have 4 interceptions this year. 4 touchdowns, though. Geno, former actually Giant quarterback. Right now, Seahawks are 7-point favorites. Right now, the Giants, Malik Nabers, he's going to be out this week. Still got a concussion from last week. But like I said before last week, he's already a top 3 receiver in football. You know, you got to put him up there with Justin Jefferson. It's Justin Jefferson, and then it's kind of like the QBs. He's the Pat Mahomes QBs. Justin Jefferson, and then it's another level for 2 and 3. But 2 and 3, I think Malik Nabers is going to be right there already by the end of this year. That's how good and talented he is. You look at Malik Nabers' numbers this year. It's definitely a big loss for the Giants and Daniel Jones. He's got 3 touchdowns in 4 games, 386 yards in 4 games, 35 receptions in 4 games, 96.5 yards per game. Kid's a stud. So with that said, definitely take the Seahawks spread because the Giants cannot score touchdowns. And we're going to get into that. Who is that on? Is that on Daboll or is that on Daniel Jones? I think it could be on Daniel Jones. He can't really hit the deep ball. He just can't. He cannot hit the deep ball. He cannot be he's just not accurate. Daniel Jones is not that accurate. I hate to break it to the Giants fans that are upset with Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones is just not that accurate, especially in crucial spots. In his best year, when you guys made the playoffs, he had 15 passing touchdowns. This is a guy who cannot put the ball in the end zone. It's plain and simple. I'm sorry, guys. Daniel Jones is he a QB1? Yeah, maybe on a bad football team, because you know what? That's what he's been his entire career, a QB1 on a bad football team. So Daniel Jones, he is not a QB1 on a good football team. So if the Giants ever want to be a good football team, get rid of Daniel Jones. And I think week 5, we've been saying it. I've been saying it at least. Malik Nabers could save Daniel Jones. But I think this week we need to come to a realization. Without Malik Nabers, Daniel Jones is about to look like crap. Get ready for it, Giants fans. Daniel Jones is about to look like crap because week 2, the win they had was not because of Daniel Jones. It was because Malik Nabers made insane catches. And guess what? You know who has the best passing, one of the best passing defenses in the entire NFL this year? The Seahawks. 7th best in the National Football League. So what I'm saying is Daniel Jones is probably going to suck this week. And it's going to be because he's without Malik Nabers. And yes, is he a QB1? Yeah, he can be a QB1 on a bad football team because that's what he's been his entire career, a QB1 on a bad football team. Even when he was the QB1 on a good football team, he only had 15 passing touchdowns that year. Jones can't put the ball in the end zone. Without Malik Nabers, I do not think he's beaten the Seahawks. I don't think he's going to perform well. The passing defense the Seahawks have has been great this year, so I don't see Jones doing well. I don't think the Giants scoring troubles on offense it's not on Daboll, it's on Daniel Jones. We saw it in 2022. We're seeing it again. And I think we're going to see it this week based off the defense that the Seahawks have and the fact that Daniel Jones doesn't have Malik Nabers to save him and bail him out. So if Jones has a big game and he throws for like 3 passing touchdowns and he beats the Seahawks, he will make me eat my words. And I will come on this podcast next week, this Monday, and apologize to him. But it still won't change my mind. I still don't think Daniel Jones consistently can do what he did against the Minnesota Vikings in round 1 of the playoffs in 2022. That's the reason he got that contract, because of 1 game, and I do not think he can do that for 17 games. I just don't. He's been given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and he's been to the playoffs once, and it wasn't even because of him. It was because of Brian Daboll and Saquon Barkley and Dexter Lawrence. But that's it for today's show, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys Monday. Let's go Jets this week on Sunday. Let's go Giants. Rutgers. College football guy, Rutgers. We got a chance to be ranked this week. So it's a big day tomorrow for Rutgers. But most importantly, it's a big day for the 2 teams in the playoffs. The Yankees and the Mets. Good luck, Yankees. I really hope they do beat up on the Royals. I did pick them to win the World Series this year. I'm sticking with them. So I am rooting for the Yankees, but at the same time, if they play the Mets in the World Series, I will be rooting for my Mets, obviously. So second importantly is the Yankees, yes, but most importantly, let's go Mets. We got Kodai Senga and Garrett Cole pitching tomorrow in game ones of the playoffs. You got to be pumped if you're a New York sports fan. We got Daniel Jones test without Malik Nabers this week. We got the Jets in London against a former quarterback, Sam Darnold. Are we going to be 3-2 or are we going to be 2-3 heading to a must-win game against the Buffalo Bills? Because if we win this week against the Vikings, we go up against the Bills. We beat them. We're first in the AFC East. So big weekend for New York sports, baby. Big weekend. Also, Carl Anthony Towns was introduced to the media. We're going to be talking about that this Monday. But thank you for watching, guys. That's it for today's show. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. See you.